right, folks, we are just about ready to roll.
How do I get rid of this?
Just to, got it, Chris got it on the screen.
Okay, I'm gonna turn.
The blue, yeah, on the
All right.
screen.
You guys were,
Just press it.
with your mouse.
Oh, maybe you gotta do it with the mouse.
Just,
The arrow on the got it
Okay.
and click.
your mouse is upside down. Ready? Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
April 8th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Land and Natural Resources. Thank you for being here. We are holding a hybrid meeting with 5 board members present in the boardroom and 1 participating by Zoom. And persons who have signed up to present or testify in Zoom are in the waiting room, and when it's your agenda item, we will call you into the main room and ask you to turn off your YouTube when you do that, and also so that we don't get an echo, and also turn off your video and audio until we call on you. Members of the public who want to observe are able to do so by YouTube. There's a phone number in the agenda online to provide oral testimony if you so choose to at any time. If you're in the waiting room and you have just identified by a phone number, please let Darlene, our board secretary, know what your phone number is so that we know which item you're here for. I'm going to do a roll call, and board members, if you are, just let us know what your location is, and if you're participating by Zoom, please let us know if there's anyone in the room with you. So just starting off, Kaivi Yoon, member Kaivi Yoon. You don't have to turn your audio on.
Good morning, Kaivi. I'm in the boardroom.
Thank you. Member Tommy Oy.
Tommy Oy, I'm in the boardroom.
Thank you. Member Chris Ewan.
Aloha, good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Ewan, and I'm in the boardroom.
Thank you. Member Vernon Char.
Vernon Char in the boardroom.
Thank you. Member Doreen Canto.
Member Canto, I'm at home via Zoom and I'm here alone. Thank you.
Thank you. And I am Board Chair Suzanne Case, and Board Member Amy Barnes, I think, will be joining a little bit later via Zoom. Member Canto, can I ask you to please read the standard contested case statement?
So I just have a really quick question. So you folks are via mic only, is that correct?
Or what?
I don't have you on audio, so you're on a microphone in the boardroom?
In the boardroom, yes. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. I just didn't have a video, so thank you. All right, so in some of the matters before the board, a person may wish to request a contested case hearing. If such a request is made before the board's decision, then the board will consider the request first before considering the merits of the item before it. The person who wants a contested case may also wait until the board decides the issue, then request the contested case after the decision. It is up to you. Any request must be made in writing within 10 days. If no request for the contested case is made, the board will make a decision. The department will treat the decision as final and proceed accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're ready to proceed with the agenda. Let's do the minutes first. And so first up is approval of the February 11, 2022 minutes. And there's no public testimony on this. Board members, do you have any questions on this? If not, is there a motion to approve the February
It's
11
not,
minutes as,
Second.
all right?
Move to
All in
approve,
favor,
Chair.
say aye.
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 Okay, so for the
Aye.
record, that is Case, Char, Canto, Yoon, Boy, and Ewan. And Member Barnes is not present. Okay, next up is the February 25, 2022 minutes. Any questions, board members? There's no public testimony. If not, is there a motion to approve as submitted?
So moved.
Thank you.
So
Is there a
moved,
second?
Chair.
I
I'll
need a
second.
Well, second.
Thank you. All in
Canto.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous with 6. Okay, we are going to go to the M items first, DOT. Okay, items M1 through 17 are airports, DOT airports, and there's no public testimony. So, board members, do you have any questions on any of the items M1 through 17?
Just my regular question for M5, which is Lihue Airport, Safari helicopter, that this is strictly, this is not for aircraft, for helicopter operations, this is a support, this lease is for support services, or this RP.
Is that right, Ms.
Correct.
Lewis?
Yes,
Wait.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank
You
you.
know, our volume's a little low. Can we, the room volume, is Frank here? We are, space age with hybrid meetings and still working out the audio.
For case, I have a question, Member Canto.
Yeah, can you hang on a second because, I'm just trying to get it louder in the room.
Sure.
Okay, try to say something, Member Canto.
Hi, good morning.
That's better.
That's better, good.
Keep talking. Do you have a question?
Okay.
Why don't you go ahead?
Oh, just really quick question. So for the most part, these RPs are, the recommendation is month to month, is that correct?
Yes,
So
The-
do you review them month to month to see that they're all in compliance?
no, we
Or do
would
you have
not
to
be,
visit them every month?
no, we do not visit the revocable permits on a monthly basis. We do go on South Ramp inspections and things like that. And if necessary, if there's a compliance issue or we are looking at a certain item, then yes, we'll review those revocable permits. But the reason why we're doing, for example, item number 5 is the revocable permit for commercial use of a T hangar. So Safari Aviation was currently already in that hangar, and we're just revising the revocable permit to bring it up to current terms and conditions for helicopter operations, or as far as commercial businesses from a T hangar, but no air tours will be done. So basically, we're rewriting this revocable permit to bring it up to new terms and conditions.
And then the month to month starts on the rewritten.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
And just so everybody's up to date, I believe how the DOT works is we do They bring a new revocable permit to us unless it's, something they wanna, that is continuing, that they wanna update. They are revocable permits for 1 year, renewable annually, but cancelable on 30 days' notice. And, I believe, Ms. LaRue, you can confirm, that the way DOT has been handling these, which is a little different from DLNR, is once we approve a revocable permit, if it extends beyond a year, they're doing it at the department level. Is that correct, Ms. LaRue?
Yes, that would be correct.
Yeah. So we don't see them again after this, unless we only see the new ones.
Or
And,
something like this, which is a reissuance.
or an update.
Yes.
That's a little different from DLNR's ones, where we bring them to the board every year.
Okay, okay. Thank you for
So the
that.
ones we do sort of in the fall, we do by county. We do them by county so that they get more attention. Those are new ones, and, well, they're renewals. They are renewals. The new ones come to us as separate submittals.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I get a question.
yeah.
Abby, item 4, 8, 10, 11, and 16. What is the ADS-B radio equipment? What is it used for?
So the Harris Corporation, they really don't occupy any space. It's a radio for, it's almost like a FAA air traffic control radios that are on the buildings, outside of the buildings. And again, the reason we're coming back to you with 8 of them is because there was a little bit a change in their entity name. So this is also a reissuance. They're already there. We're going to terminate existing contracts and reissue them to a name change. So that's why we're coming to you. But those are like radios that are put on outside of buildings, and and they're on all airports.
Because I noticed that the one on Lihui is on the crash fire
Yes.
building, yes?
Mm-hmm. So they are at every airport at different locations, and I don't know how they choose the locations, to be honest with you.
I just was wondering, so doesn't seem like it's something big. Right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I actually looked it up, automatic dependent surveillance broadcast. The satellite positioning
Yeah.
of the aircraft. According to Wikipedia.
Source of all information these days.
I was impressed for a second, and then she went online.
It's like Encyclopedia Britannica. Okay, any other questions, M1 through 17? No? Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve M1 through 17 as submitted?
Move to approve, 1 through 17 as submitted.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
I,
Unanimous with 6, thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
And, thank you, Ms. LaRue, have a great weekend. All right, M18 and 19 are Harbor's revocable permits. Ms. Somita is here to answer questions. No public testimony. Board members, any questions on those? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve M18 to 19 as submitted? Body,
Move to approve, M18 and 19 as
thank
submitted.
you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously, 6. Thank you, Ms. Smita.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving to the D item. Yeah.
Our in-person store for, YouTube.
D,
Before,
okay, we do have people online for, the other ones, so let's just go in order, I think. Okay, D1. Let's see, I gotta let, sorry.
Can we let everybody in for the D item?
Yeah, you might as well. Yeah, I think we have everybody for D1.
Okay, you guys are back on video. Yeah.
Wait, I thought they had Russell.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
here,
Russell.
Chair.
Okay,
What,
D1, if
what
you're
I,
ready.
D1?
D1,
Okay.
D1.
All right. D1 is, we're requesting the board to issue a direct lease to Kyvan Farm Educational Programs for pasture purposes. We believe this is a worthy project, good use of agricultural land for disabled children and adults to learn, hopefully a trade in the future. I don't have anything to add on this provision. I'm available for questions. I think my district land agent might be also online, available for questions as well.
Thank you, and we also have Ms. Yvette Nakahiki.
I
You wanna-
have some questions.
Yeah, okay, you want to ask questions of staff? Go ahead.
Yes. Is it customary to, do a 30-year lease on this matter? I notice it's a nonprofit, that relatively no income to the, state. And I gather it's for grazing purposes, so it doesn't sound like there's gonna be much improvements. Why is it necessary to go out 30 years for a lease on this property at this time?
So the question is whether we go for the 30-year term customarily. I don't think
Or
that-
a shorter term, since no improvement, doesn't sound like there's much improvements going on for the property, and it will tie the property up for minimal or no, very minimal rents to the
Yeah.
state for that length of time.
These are otherwise ag land, pasture rate lands, which normally bring in very little to begin with, Board Member Char. They're nothing to compare with Oahu industrial ag rates, industrial land rates. But as far as the term, it is not unusual for the board to grant even longer dispositions, even through nonprofits such as 55 or 65, up to this statutory maximum. We have, in fact, most of them are like longer terms. I think in the Kauai land agent, to her credit, has kind of limited these leases for a 30-year term or less, if this board wishes, but so that they have the ability to extend further if they want to continue beyond the 30. Because under the statute, you can go up to a maximum of 65 years currently until you have to get a new lease, actually, go through the new process, a new lease.
And also, I think this is part of their program.
Yeah.
Did you want to ask?
I have another question. Just looking at the map, though, it appears that there are other parcels in the area. Is this particular parcel that we're discussing today pretty isolated, or is it, is it next to other lots that would indicate some potential for more productivity in the future?
I don't know if my
Al-
Kauai agent is on board, if she could answer. My understanding, as you can see in the submittal, was this is a decommissioned, is a parcel near a decommissioned well. And it had been under pasture for multiple terms and then ultimately became vacant. I don't know if Allison, if you're available to answer.
Allison
Board Member Cho.
Newstein, Kauai District Lands Office. This was actually a decommissioned reservoir area, and it's surrounded by, there's no other state parcels that we're using in this area. There's large residential, kind of like gentleman farm lots. But this is the only, there's nothing that we would be able to build upon around here. It's just this reservoir piece.
Thank you.
Roy, did you have questions, comments?
You answered my question just now.
Okay, great. Okay, any other questions of staff? Okay, Ms. Nakaahiki, did you want to add anything? You're on mute. You gotta unmute.
Sorry. I currently
Yeah,
work
there you
at Waimea High School, and this program, I run it out of Waimea High School. So the program is to give children with disabilities soft skills. On the west side of Kauai, we don't have anything basically for children with disabilities to learn work skills and soft skills. Through our program, the kids also earn in, it's called a work diploma. It's not a regular diploma. So it's a work diploma to say that the child has work skills. I've been running this program for over 10 years already, and we just need another parcel and just someplace else to go.
Great work. Thank you for doing that. Okay, any other questions?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I gather that the parcel is going to be used for grazing of goats. Is there any commercial aspect to it? Is there a dairy? Or is there anything done with the goats or sale or? Can you
No,
tell me a
so
little bit more
currently,
about the operation?
okay, so currently what we do with our goats is whatever goats we have for meat, we sell for meat. So basically the farm does not make any money. That's why I developed it into a nonprofit organization. I put money out of my pocket into the farm because I work at Waimea High School and I seen the program work. So basically I'm doing it for the children. But the farm basically, we sell some of the goats for meat, and some of the goats we donate to the 4-H kids for their 4-H project. We are the only goat farm on the island right now that donates their goats to 4-H. Every other goat farmer sells it. We also work with DVR, Department of Vocational Rehab. We also work with the Hawaiian School on the west side. So basically, that is how the farm is run. And then I write for grants like once a year, just so that the farm is not in the negative. I write enough grants so that the farm fall even.
Thank you.
Can I remind people, if your item is not up, if you wouldn't mind turning your video off until your item is up, that would be helpful. Thank you. Okay, other questions on D1, board members? Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve D1 as submitted?
Move to approve D1 as submitted.
All right.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Member Canto, you are.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, that passes unanimously with 6. All right, D2.
Thank you, board.
Okay, D2. Thank
Good
you,
luck.
Allison. Okay, D2 is, and I thank Board Member Kanto for sending in some additional photographs of the area. D2 is a request for the board to issue immediate construction right of entry and a revocable permit to the Mantol Montukuji Mission, who has a cemetery, a private parcel cemetery that abuts the shoreline, and it's being threatened with the shoreline movement. And it is requesting to place temporary erosion control structure, i.e., geotextile bags filled with sand to temporarily protect the shoreline area. And under the OCCL permit that was issued, they do have 2 years to submit a plan. We understand that they may be looking to possibly relocate some of the structures that are currently threatened. I don't have anything else to add other than to state what's in the submittal. If you have questions, I'm available for questions. And also, I think my Maui land agent might be trying to get on as well to help answer questions. Thank you.
He is on, yeah. Okay, questions, board members?
Chair, Member Canto.
Yeah.
So Russell, thank you for allowing me to submit those images. I primarily wanted to share with the board members the seriousness of that erosion currently occurring where the grave sites are dropping into the Pacific Ocean. So that was my main concern. As far as your last comment regarding going into a conversation with someone that's interested in helping Reverend at the Montukuji to relocate those sites, that will occur at another time, but that's for not today's discussion. But with that, I will look to make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Okay, we do have, hold that thought, we do have Mr. Foley and Mr. Moto here. Did you want to add anything?
I did not have a conversation with Mr. Moto. I wanted to wait until today's meeting before I had that conversation with him about a person that's interested in helping them. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Moto, did you want to add anything? Oh, no, we're not hearing you. Why? Try your speaker on your computer.
Nope.
Not here. Your microphone on your computer turned on? You know, I hate to say this, but sometimes you need to sign out and sign back in, and sometimes that works. Want to try that? We can wait for you.
While we wait, can I ask Russell a question, Chair?
Yeah.
Russell, you know, in one of the exhibits, page 2, bottom photo those are graves, right?
Which exhibit? Which exhibit?
Exhibit F, page 2.
Okay, what was the question again, sir?
Those are graves, correct?
The grassy area, page 2, the one by the shoreline. I think that's kind of like what Kanto's board member Kanto's photo showed. Allison, is that right? Photo page 2 of photo exhibit F.
Correct.
The ones, the first photo is probably some of the headstones that might have fallen in or something. Is that...
So those are maybe member Kanto knows. So Pua, those are graves, and then I guess my question is, have any of those
the headstones, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the word that I got from residents of the area. So I would think the Reverend would be able to confirm that with you today, KV.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, a similar question, if there are headstones, were there coffins? Or are they just markers?
Yeah. I don't believe that everyone respectively were cremated there. I believe that they were coffins. I used to live on the street in the perimeter, so at that time, it wasn't this bad, but it's very apparent today. And so there are coffins, yeah. And there are turtles. There are hundreds of turtles on the beach. You can see them in one of the images. There's one everywhere.
Okay,
And they belong
Mr.
to us.
Moto, let's test your audio again. Oh, we can still not hear you. I am so sorry. You want to try calling in? If you want to call in, you can. There's a number. Let me read you the number. 1. Oh, you gotta dial all this meeting ID and passcode stuff. You might, if you have the agenda in front of you, it's on page 1 of the agenda. It might be easier. Yeah, okay. So you dial that number and then you do the prompt and then the meeting ID and then the passcode.
Your case, is Land Agent Seiko on the call with us?
Yes, I'm here.
I just want to say hello. Hello.
Hi. Hi, Member Kanto.
I am. And thank you for helping me.
Mr. Foley, while we're waiting for that call, did you want to add anything?
Thank you, Chair. Mike Foley, coastal engineer with Oceanet. I'm just here to answer any questions of the board. Thank you.
So this is a question for anybody, really. Any idea why the turtles seem to be attracted to this spot?
No.
That's a good vibe.
Sometimes they like to bask, they like to lie on big slabs of rock. I don't know. It seems funny that they would gather right here.
It's a bay area. It's kind of like a half moon, if you might. It's receded a lot, but then during the winter and stuff, it's all covered with ocean water, and it hits up into the grave sites, and the temple is like very, very close in perimeter to it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very alarming situation for the temple and the burial sites, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Remoto. Wait, how come we can't hear you on the... I see you talking. Try press *6. *6 to unmute.
Okay.
Hey!
Hi, Reverend.
All right.
Okay. Reverend Moto, please proceed, please.
Hi, aloha, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak in front of you today. I'm here as the president of the Manto Gucci Mission of Paia Administrative Board, representing our Sangha, our temple members. Manto Gucci is a Sotoshu Zen Buddhist temple that has been at our iconic beachfront location in Paia, Maui since 1906, and we are currently facing an existential crisis due to the ever-increasing shoreline erosion suffered over the past decade. By state standards, Manto Gucci is currently in a crisis situation with the back of our temple structure just about 16 feet from the property drop-off point. In the fall of 2017, Manto Gucci started our shoreline erosion mitigation project to formally address the problems associated with our property's shoreline erosion. And in the spring of 2018, we began working with ocean engineer Michael Foley and his team at Oceanet, first to develop shoreline erosion mitigation plans and then to be the leader primary consultant for our project. Manto Gucci has been blessed to have other dedicated and diligent professionals join our project team, and we have all worked long and hard to see this very important project through. With Michael Foley's leadership and guidance, Montaguchi has developed a plan for a temporary erosion control structure. We have obtained a State of Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources Emergency Conservation District Use Permit. We have obtained a County of Maui Special Management Area minor permit. We have been working with a licensed contractor to obtain approval of sand and geotextile materials to be used in the structure and, when approved, to construct the erosion control structure. We have been working with an architect consultant and an architectural firm to meet our requirement to OCCL for a plan for future relocation of threatened structures. We are about to enter a contract with an archaeological firm to address SHPD's recent request for an archaeological monitoring plan. We are working on securing the required bond to guarantee that funds will be available for the removal of the erosion control structure at the end of the permit timeline. And now we are here today asking for approval of these right of entry and revocable permits. Throughout this long and complex process, Montaguchi and our team of professionals have worked through all of the state and county laws, rules, and requirements, and we hope that this board recognizes our efforts and recognizes the crisis nature of our current situation. While others may choose to illegally dump rocks and sand and concrete onto their shorelines and then come away with monetary fines that are just a fraction of what we are spending on our project, Montaguchi comes before you having done everything by the book. So we humbly ask that you approve our permit request today. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Glad you could join.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Reverend. I have a question, and I hope it's...
I'm not the Reverend.
Oh, I'm so sorry, President.
Yes, just
Well, what
President
are you
of
doing?
the Administrative Board.
He reminds me of a reverend. He's president.
I get that all the time.
Well, I apologize.
No problem.
And I apologize for this question if it's culturally insensitive. Is there a thought to somewhat manage retreat the burials, or is it the culturally appropriate thing to leave them in place?
Yeah, we're still trying to, the board and the temple members are still trying to decide what our plans will be for the cemetery. For now, we have a stay in place for the cemetery, the grave site to stay in place, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're
Could
welcome.
I ask the same question I asked earlier? Are these headstones, were there typically people buried in coffins there, or are they markers for perhaps cremation remains?
Yeah, the ones near the shoreline area are, 100 years or more old. So some of them probably have nothing left, below ground, just the headstones. And we're not quite sure. All of our records from that time are in Japanese. And so we're not sure whether they were urns that were buried or coffins. Yeah. So sorry, we're not quite sure. The records are so old.
So it would be probably one or the other, though? Urns or
Yes.
coffins? Okay.
Yes, and again, at this point, there probably is very little left underground besides the
Yes.
gravestone on top.
Any other questions? All right, if not, Member Canto, do you want to remake your motion to approve?
Yes, before I do that, I want to apologize. I'm so sorry. I just respected you as Reverend, and please forgive me
No
for
worries,
that.
no worries.
And also, thank you. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we accept and approve staff recommendation today.
Me too. All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously with 6. Thank you so much. All right, thank you for joining.
Thank you. Aloha, boy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, board. And thank you,
Thank you.
land agent Seiko.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Seiko.
Welcome, bye.
All right, D3.
Okay, D3 is our firework, right of entry for a fireworks show at Fleming's Beach. I'm going to call upon Kevin Moore, who was going to present this matter. Thanks. Kevin?
Thank you.
Kevin, you have to unmute. Or Kevin, your audio is not hearing you.
I can present for you, Kevin, if you need me.
Yeah, just hold off.
Okay.
Kevin had some amendments to the submittal on the compensation, and then there was some amendments related to the right of entry document that was being worked on or being reviewed by our Attorney General and their counsel on the mainland.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, so yeah, this is for a fireworks show at Fleming Beach at Honolulu, Lahaina, and the event is for April 11th. It's going to run from about 10 in the morning until midnight that day. And we normally don't have a lot to say about these types of events, except in this case, we are going to ask for some amendments. One is for rent, and one is regarding to allow an ATV on the beach. So the rent that we put in the submittal was $540. That includes $40 for the footprint of the firing rack, where they set up the equipment and actually launch the fireworks from. And the board has been imposing a $500 safety zone fee for the much larger area around the firing rack that needs to be cleared of people, spectators, prior to launch. And that's 280-foot radius from the firing site. However, in the process of working on this submittal and another one for this site, another fireworks display request that will come before the board at its next meeting, we learned that the fireworks company actually needs to exclude people on the beach from a 70-foot or 75-foot radius around the firing rack from about 10:30 in the morning until the event is done. And so in the interest of balancing commercial use of a public beach against public recreational use, we thought we should at least recommend to the board that we collect rent for this staging area exclusion zone, which comes out to be about 17,662 square feet. And if we multiply that by the 10 cents per square foot per day ROE rent, we get $1,766.23. We would still collect the $500 fee for the much larger safety zone that's imposed right before the event is conducted. And so the total rent would be $2,266.23. The applicant also asked for an all-terrain vehicle to help get equipment and things down to the beach and back from the beach. And so we would include an amendment specifically to recommendation 2, adding a new 2B to say one small utility vehicle is allowed during the duration of the right of entry, and applicants shall take care not to disturb resting turtles or monk seals if they are present. Our Maui office staff did consult with the DAR on this, and they were generally okay with the fireworks display as long as care was taken not to disturb resting turtles and monk seals. They also had some concern about the fallout, but the right of entry does require the permittee to collect fallout from both the beach and the ocean. And then our staff also checked with the Maui Fire Department's Division of Ocean Safety, and they did not have any concerns with the adverse impacts. They said there have been no adverse impacts to ocean safety operations as a result of these kinds of events. So the amendments are again to increase the rent to that figure I gave you and allow the all-terrain vehicle. And I think the applicant's here as well to testify.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions, board members?
Kevin,
Chair, I have a question.
what's
Sorry.
the event? What are they celebrating?
Kevin, we lost your audio again.
Sorry, I'm not sure what's going on there. The Ritz-Carlton is next door to this beach, and they are having some type of corporate event, I understand. And so the fireworks display is for the guests at that event.
Member Canto?
So just a couple questions. So, how are we notifying our community and our beach goers prior to the event? That's one of them. Well, and then does the applicant have a private residence there or property there in Kapalua?
Okay, so for the notice, there is no published notice. It's the folks who come down to the beach would just see the safety zone site cordoned off. There may be some signs saying stay away, fireworks or explosives in the area. And then.
And nothing notice prior to that to tell them this is going on, this is happening? They just appear at the beach and.
If I may, Kevin, on this one, wasn't there a promoter, or event promoter on this one? Understood?
Yeah, so there's
yeah, because typically like when we do the fireworks shows in Waikiki, it's already promoted by so many people in Waikiki organizations, the Improvement Association, the business associations. I'm not sure about this one, but I do know it was an event coordinator on this project. You want to explain that, Kevin, please?
Yeah, and so maybe that question could be answered by the applicant. I don't know of any formal notice procedures that have to go out to the public. It would basically be people coming down to the beach and seeing the setup. And then for your second question about a private residence, I don't know the answer to that.
And if there is a private residence or property for the applicant, why wasn't it proposed to happen there instead?
Again, the applicant may be able to answer better, but I think the layout of the private property is such that you would not want the fallout coming down around structures and improvements. The fallout for this setup will come down on the open beach and in the near shore waters.
In the ocean. And so, Chair, at some point and Russell, could we hear from Agent Daniel Ornelas as well on this issue? At some point?
Yeah, I'm here. Kevin pretty much presented the recommendation with the amendments to the consideration paid to the state and for the use of ATV vehicle on the shoreline to transport equipment and materials from the Kapalua Resort, the Ritz-Carlton to be specific, along the shoreline, 12-foot driveway standard, a few hundred feet in length from the private property to the firing site. Other than that, the submittal stands as is. Kevin had reiterated the 75-foot safe zone around the racks, 400 square foot on the beach for most of the day. And I understand cleanup will commence right after this event, 10 p.m. Should be done by midnight, we're understanding. And then in the next morning, when you got daylight, I understand applicant has agreed to go onto the shoreline to pick up any debris that may be still in the area. And to ensure that process, I believe we've recommended a $2,500 deposit be placed with the state of Hawaii prior to the event in case we need to go and clean the area up ourselves.
Thank you.
One question. Daniel,
Yes.
which way is the wind blowing?
Prevailing trade winds are northeast. The firing site is
Offshore.
targeted towards the west. So if it was a windy evening, blowing from mountainside towards the ocean, it's going to push it further out into sea, the fallout that is.
So, you guys have any plans of taking the debris out of the ocean?
I'd like to defer to the applicant. I believe Wayne Hijiki is online, and I believe Stephanie Pasquale is the actual pyrotechnic operator.
Okay, Mr. Hijiki, or
Actually, can I just interject really quick? This is Stephanie Pasquale. I'm here just to answer questions, but I am not the applicant of this application.
Yes, hello, this is Wayne Hijiki. I'm with Envisions Entertainment, and we are the ones that contracted Pyro Spectaculars to do this fireworks show for the corporate group at the Ritz-Carlton. So I can only tell you that if there's any questions you have for me, I'd be more than happy to ask.
the question is, do you have plans to clean up debris from the ocean the next day?
Pyro Spectaculars typically goes up and down the beach, and whatever debris that falls are on the beach. They clean all that up. They go up and down the beach, and anywhere that the fallout zone would be, they would clean that up. And that's what
So I think
they've been doing for
we
the
have had
past.
extensive discussion in the past about debris that actually falls in the ocean. Ms. Pasquale, can you maybe describe what you've done in the past in the ocean?
Sure, go ahead. Yes, happy to. What we have done in the past is upon arrival at our firing site, we take photos of the location, including the shore and in the water. Then we do clean up of both shoreline and in the water, and send documented photographs, date and time stamped of our cleanup, the debris we picked up, as well as how we left the area the next day.
And is that cleanup in the ocean with scuba diving gear?
And the locations that we have shot shows we have gone in with masks, snorkel masks and fins. We have not had to go in the deep waters requiring scuba gear.
And how Mr. Hikiji, what's the depth of the water in the bay there?
I'm not familiar. I just know there's a lot of wave action there, so it is pretty active shoreline. And so I think if there's a requirement to check the areas in the shallower shorelines, that can be done. And I think we do go in and just check it out. And I'm talking about Pyro Spectaculars because they're the ones that are the applicant here, but also they're the ones that conduct the cleanup right after the fireworks in the following morning.
So would you say that the fireworks are being deployed, I don't know, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., is that correct?
The fireworks show is a 5-minute show from 9:55 to 10 p.m. It's the setup that takes the morning, afternoon, and then the cleanup immediately after.
Okay, thank you.
So would you be open to adding to this submittal requirement that you check in the water the next day also?
Oh, is that addressed to me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
I can't speak for Pyro, but I would think that's reasonable to go in and at least check the vicinities where we can access the shoreline without shore break. being a safety issue.
I think it's, if I may, Kevin, am I, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's already required in the, somewhere in the submittal or the right of entry that they actually provide the photos and clean up the submerged lands and provide photos that evidentiary support. Is that right? Kevin, can you confirm on that?
He's muted.
Kevin, are you?
So, yeah, I had some conversations with the CEO of Pyro Spectaculars, and I believe he's on the meeting here, Jim Souza. And so we talked about that there would be cleanup on both the beach and the submerged area, but understanding that, so the events that Hawaii Explosives has at Waikiki, obviously those waters are on the leeward side of the island and much calmer. This is a northern exposure on Maui, and so there's different dynamics. And so they will do cleanup, but it's going to be a little bit, they won't have good visibility if there's active surf. And so it's a little bit different in that regard. But there's still an obligation in the right of entry to clean up to the extent they can.
Okay, Mr. Souza, did you want to comment on that? You are on mute.
There we go. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing us and our team and fellow pyrotechnic companies to testify before you today. This is obviously very important to our company, our family, for a revenue stream to recover from the 2 years that we haven't fired a display in Hawaii. That being said, we've also been in this business in Hawaii for over 35 years, and we conduct best management practices when it regard to these environmental sensitive areas. I just want to say the things that we have done, and also with Stephanie and her company, that we have taken extra precautions to prevent the harmful things such as the wires, electronic wires connecting to the aerial devices. We've removed anything possible that can fly out like that. What we end up with is biodegradable paper and cardboard in the fallout zone that we do clean up. With respect to your questions about the ocean, I mean, we're really talking about something that is really ultra hazardous for us to enter into several hundred feet of ocean with the surf that's in this particular area that is quite different than Waikiki. We're going to do our best efforts to clean up any paper and debris as we have done in the past, and we'll continue to do so within the parameters of being safe for all of our technicians.
Member Canto?
Mr. Souza, I would guess this would be a question for you, but so you're entering the beach area, your hope is via ATVs. Do you plan to rope off the area as well, or how do you plan to drive onto the beach and do that? And how many trips along the beach are you making during the course of the day?
Sure, this is a significant amount of transport with the heavy racks and materials that is impossible to use with just casual labor or hired technicians. I'm going to defer to our licensed technicians on the show, Mr. Dan Ramsauer, to do this explanation. He's done that in the past for us. Dan, please. And Dan.
They have somebody trying to speak, but Dan Ramsauer, there you go.
Hi, this is Dan Ramsauer from Pyro Spectaculars. I've shot numerous shows on that beach in the past several years. What we generally do is we bring the racks in using the mule because they're heavy and there's quite a few of them to be carrying two at a time, which is all one human being can carry. We generally avoid everybody that's beachgoers. We bring the racks in. When we bring the fireworks in, we set up a perimeter using T-posts and rope and a few signs saying, you know, do not enter dangerous area. So basically that starts at around 10 or 11 o'clock, and then it comes down after the show. We clear the guns, we make sure there's no live material on the beach, and then the public's allowed anywhere they want to go. But basically it's several trips with the mule back and forth from the truck to the setup site.
Sure, question, please.
Yeah.
So Dan, you mentioned you've done this before several times. Was it on that beach or elsewhere?
No, on that particular beach.
Okay, so were you permitted then? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yes,
You
as
were?
far as I know, we were, yes.
Okay.
Wayne
Right.
Kikiji at that time was doing most of the permitting. We're doing it now, but Wayne can attest to that.
All right, thank you, Dan. Wayne?
I got one question for Dan. So, you said you did a lot of other shows in that area. How did your debris, how much debris went into the ocean that you guys had to pick up?
It's difficult to say. We pick up quite a bit around the immediate firing site. Generally, there's a trail of debris that goes with the wind. We clean up all of that on the beach. We walk the entire shoreline at night, and then we do it again during the day in case anything washes up. Most of the debris is paper. I did a show on Lanai several years ago for New Year's, and we actually went and scuba dove afterwards, the whole area over there, and found the only things that were there were just bits of paper floating. They were delaminated already. They disappear quite quickly in the surf and in the ocean. The salt water just gets rid of it. So we do everything we can to strip any plastic off the shells. We strain relieve the wires so they don't come out with the shell and go into the ocean. And anything we find, we pick up.
So you're saying that you guys never did go out in the ocean and pick up debris?
On that particular beach, no, just because the surf action is so active, it's pretty difficult to go out there and find anything due to the surf. I don't know how many of you have been to that beach, but the surf action is pretty consistent and it's pretty big waves.
Okay, anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Hiji.
Hiji, yes.
Hiji, thank you. Did you reach out to the community about this event or what's going to happen?
Well, what is part of the Fire Prevention Bureau's requirement is that there is a notice in the paper 3 days prior leading up to the event. And that has been the practice since I've been doing this 25 years ago. And I'm sure with Jim and Dan, even well beyond that, that's the requirement by the Fire Prevention Bureau. So there is public notice in the paper. 3 days prior to, I believe, right, Dan?
That's correct. We do it time. I've talked to the fire department. It's not in the regulations per se, but they request us doing it just because of people complaining sometimes if there's noise, they don't know what's coming from. So it's sort of an unwritten requirement that we publish an ad in the newspaper 3 days prior. And we publish it in the Maui News.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else want to add anything? Mr. Brown, did you want to add anything?
No, thank you, Canto. I was here to answer any questions that might pop up, and I think they've been fielded pretty well by the applicant.
Okay.
Canto?
Just a comment. I just think that by the time word gets out via the local paper to the time the event actually occurs, our community will come to us. I am almost certain that there's going to be, comments from the community, and they won't have enough time to either for the lack of a better word, stop the project. I just know that the comments will come based on this publication. Thank you.
May I say something, Chair, Chairperson?
Sure.
Yes, Member Kanto. As I said, we've done this show many times, numerous times off of Fleming's Beach. And we have yet, and the Fire Prevention Bureau monitors any of those comments. If there is complaints, they're usually the ones that get that. So as far as we know, there has been no complaints of the fireworks show being done there, and it's not done very often, maybe once, maybe twice a year at most, it seems. It's not a continuous ongoing thing that causes inconvenience or irritation to the as we know.
How long is the show itself?
5 minutes.
May I add?
Mr. Hikiji, is there a reason why the Ritz-Carlton didn't just do it on their site?
There is no permissible firing site on the property, especially given the wind conditions that blow Mauka to Mackay. We couldn't do Mauka of the venue because then all the fallout would be on the event venue itself. And there is no other spot on the Ritz-Carlton property that the firing that would be approved, that we'd have approved firing site by the Fire Prevention Bureau.
Isn't there a lot of golf courses in that area?
Well, they are, but they're very, very far away. So not even close to where the Ritz-Carlton is.
Can I just add something? Sorry. I just wanted to add a comment regarding the notification. I don't know that it's the case here, but it is pretty common that if you are working with the hotel, they usually put out a notice to the association and nearby neighbors. So that might be something that Mr. Hikiji may look into. But I know for me, when I do shows in Maui, especially on barges, the associations are noticed within a week, I believe, of the fireworks that's to happen.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve D3 as submitted?
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve with reservations. And if I could comment on that motion.
Yes.
After
Is there a second?
Second, or at least keep it going, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So Chair, I'm gonna base that decision on the fact that, number one, it's all of 5 minutes. And then secondly, that they've done this type of work before and it's been permitted for this kind of event. So yeah, so I'll move to approve as submitted.
Okay, we have a second further discussion.
So sorry, Chair, can I
Oh,
get
yeah,
clarification? Is this as submitted or as amended?
Sorry, as amended by Kevin's comments regarding the payment and the ATV, right?
Right.
Member
Right.
Canto?
Correct.
Okay, and
Yes.
second,
Yes.
okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna be voting no on this because of the fact that, because of the waves or, there are, lots of waves on the beach. There's no excuse for not cleaning up the debris in the ocean. Debris in the ocean, I think, even though it's paper, you're still polluting the beach. You're still polluting the ocean. That's why I'm voting no on this. If the waves are making it hard for you to clean up the ocean, then you shouldn't be doing fireworks over there.
Yeah, I'll be voting no as well. I agree with Tommy, and in addition to that, the 3-day notice is short time, and during COVID we couldn't do these events, and you know, I'm gonna agree with you, Paul, that I think the community's gonna, you know, have a few words about this. You got a large surfing community that's probably, you know, that really care about that, about their water resource, you know, and to not include, you know, local, community comments, I don't think that's, fair to the community, Maui community.
Other comments? I'll add, I'm gonna be voting with reservations on this. I have reservations about fireworks shows, and in particular, the noise impacts, not just to people, but to animals. And you know, I'm glad people are better about picking up debris now. I am worried about ATVs running up and down the beach all day long with heavy stuff in an area that may have turtles and perhaps monk seals. I do worry that this is not, that the public benefit is not very high here, and the impact is, there are impacts. So I just have reservations about it. It's a one-time thing, but I have reservations. So any other comments? Okay, let's take a vote. All right, all those voting aye. Okay, that's Case,
Canto.
Char, Canto with reservations, Case with reservations, Canto with reservations, Char, and Ewan.
I agree with all the comments that are made.
Okay, are you with reservations also?
Yeah, you know, it doesn't make any difference to
It
me
does.
if you say with reservations.
Yeah,
I have reservations on a lot of things that I vote on, to be really honest about it, but, you know, you vote
Yeah.
yes or no in the end.
Yeah, but I feel better saying that I have reservations. Okay, and, no? vote?
No.
Okay, that is, Boy and Yoon. Okay, thank you, everyone. Let's take a 5-minute break and then move on to D4.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, and, you know, it took a while. I mean, it's legit. I mean, they're dropping a lot of
Okay, we're back. Member Canto, are you here? Looking for member Canto. Calling.
Hello.
There you are. Okay.
Okay.
You got video? Member Canto?
I do.
There you go. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
Alrighty. Okay, we're gonna move to D4 now.
Okay, good morning, board members. Russell Tsuji for DLNR Land Division. D4 is a request for a right of entry to URIS for purposes of conducting due diligence for a possible renewable energy project on 100 or so acres of intensive industrial land zone out at Campbell Industrial Park in the urban core. Just to give us some background, I'm going to go over real quickly background on the parcel and the executive order, and ultimately turn it over to my staffer, Luke Sarvis, who has actually worked on this submittal and actually spoken with the parties involved in particular, and actually took the photographs of the parcel and he went out to the site. You might be wondering, as board members, what is a intensive industrial zone land in urban, in the urban zone doing with Department of Agriculture? Good question. This land was historically with the Land Division, DLNR Land Division, and had been designated by the Land Board previously for income production for a Land Division to support the rest of the departmental programs. For most of you who have been briefed by my division on how our operating funds are reliant 100% on the revenues we generate from these leases to help support ourselves, the Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands, the geothermal program, the dam safety program, and on and on and on, up to the point of about 80 positions within the department, plus program fund. These lands had been previously under a development agreement by the Board of Land and Natural Resources with a renewable energy project proponent for a number of years. However, at that time, that energy company was not able to secure a HECO power purchase agreement and ultimately turned in the development agreement. On that matter about the HECO power purchase agreement, that makes it, oftentimes I've seen that it's very tough on the developers. I think this current URIS entity, when I asked them that question, their plans also contain a possible, not necessarily being bound by entering a PPA with HECO, but possibly entering some kind of arrangement with another entity called, down the street called Hawaii Gas, and selling the power there. I think their project entails solar and some form of hydrogen generation, but they'll be better able to explain their project if you have questions later in this presentation. After the original developer of renewable energy turned in his development agreement, we were approached by the Department of Agriculture chairperson to ask for these lands, primarily because he indicated they needed water for the neighboring slaughterhouse, a water allocation. And apparently this parcel has 100 acres and allotted most of the water for the area, the state lands in that area. DOA has a neighboring site, and I believe ADC also has a neighboring site. DOA's parcel is used for the slaughterhouse. And so the idea was this was supposed to be a holding area for cattle brought in from the neighbor islands for slaughter. And the reason the lands ultimately got turned over to DOA was there was a push towards local food sustainability. And so that was sort of what the idea was. The cattle was supposed to stay here, be slaughtered, and be sold in the local markets for local food consumption. Anyway, so ultimately it got turned over to DOA, and there's an executive order, as we've attached an exhibit to the board submittal, which lays out clearly the set aside. And it specifically reserves to the Board of Land and Natural Resources the right to issue leases on the land as compared to air rights, as was previously submitted in testimony by one of the proponents. It's renewable energy leases on the land that the Board of Land and Natural Resources reserved, to the extent that it does not unreasonably interfere with the operations of this cattle holding company. And so here we have, what we have is we've been approached by URES, and it's a rather preliminary matter. All they're requesting is right to go onto the property, do some studies to see whether a project will be viable or not. And that here we are today, and we've attracted a number of applicants. Some of the proponents, I think the lessee of DOA even submitted a testimony in opposition. I think they're here to testify on that. And what we're trying to say is this is not a lease for renewable energy right now. What we're proposing to the board is a right of entry, due diligence, and then we'll see where it takes us from there. Right now, I'd like to call upon my staff member, Luke Cyrus, to go into more into the in-depth parts of the submittal and what he observed and his discussions while working on the submittal. Luke, are you there?
Morning, Chair, members of the board, Luke Cyrus for the Land Division. So as Russell mentioned, I did visit the site, actually visited a couple times. First time I went out there, it's just kind of a standard thing I like to do for projects on Oahu to get an idea of what the parcel's looking like, what's around it. So yeah, I got out there, I was expecting to find possibly some cattle, corrals, something like that, mostly vacant land. Instead, it's along Olai Road for a large portion heading Diamond Head from the entrance to the parcel. It looks like a huge industrial base yard, basically. On top of that, there's a ton of industrial machinery and tractor trailers stacked several high, abandoned, junked vehicles. There's a whole bunch of construction equipment. I'm talking like road building, highway stuff, huge steel girders, iron, stuff like that, in big stacks. As you head further, Diamond Head on the parcel, you get out towards the end, there's what looks almost like it's not being quarried from there, but it's huge rubble piles of different assorted sizes, construction material, several excavators. There's a big conveyor belt machine for loading and unloading trucks into and off of the piles of fill that's out there. And so actually I stopped by the tenant's office in the slaughterhouse in the adjoining parcel when I was there and talked to staff, just kind of curious if they would just tell me what was going on. And what they said is that the property that's out there it belongs to the hauling company that does some work with the Hawaii Land and Livestock. I believe they said it was All American Hauling is the name of the company. And anyway, so they are aware of it. And they have some sort of relationship there. And so after seeing the site, I got back and I called up Department of Agriculture to let them know what was going on. I wasn't sure if they were aware of it or not, and sent the pictures, some of the same ones that are also attached as Exhibit E. And in my conversations with them, it became apparent that they are very much aware of it, and actually they referred to it as the boneyard in their written testimony, in their comments, and essentially said that they might ask them to scale it back some, but it is a use that they seem to be permitting. As Russell mentioned, the EO to DOA was for agricultural purposes, and the lease is even more specific. The lease is solely for diversified agriculture, including feedlot purposes for finishing prior to slaughter. When I was there, I did not see any sign of cattle. I didn't see any sign of the corral on the parcel. There was no sign of, say, like livestock trailers. This is all industrial construction equipment, basically, that's out there right now. None of what I saw would be allowed under the terms of the lease on its face. Just a couple more things to add. So I also checked with DPP out of curiosity, because a big part of the portion or the parcel has been cleared and leveled and turned into parking lots and roads essentially. And there's also some structures out there that look like they are kind of like a large garage area for doing service work on the vehicles and stuff like that. I checked with DPP, there's no signs of them having gotten any permits for grading, for grubbing, for construction. There's no permits for this parcel whatsoever. So to the extent that those are needed, which I'm not positive that they are, there's no sign that they actually did anything to get those. Finally, this is also a federally designated brownfield site. And there's a 2008 phase 2 ESA that was paid for with EPA grant money. And it found significant and widespread contamination in both the surface soil and the groundwater underneath. And so in the course of doing the leveling and grading to make this whole parking lot area, it's fairly likely that they stirred up and spread that stuff around who knows where, because there's no indication that there was any efforts made to mitigate the spread of the contaminants that are known to be there. And so that's it for me for now. I'll be available for questions if you have any. Just wanted to give you an idea of what the current conditions are at the parcel.
Thank you. Anything else?
The applicants, I believe, are here also.
Got a question.
I think the applicants are here to answer any questions, and I believe we have some witnesses signed up as well.
Let me just, can I just ask a question of Luke?
Yeah.
I didn't quite catch the name of the business. There was some business that had this equipment there?
Yeah,
And
so
what was
the staff of the slaughterhouse told me it was All American Hauling, I believe was the name that they said. I tried Googling it, and there is a hauling company that shows up with an Eva Beach address. There's not much online about them. I don't know what they do or anything like that, but yeah, All American Hauling is my understanding. And it's a separate company from Hawaii Land and Livestock that has the lease, but does work with them for hauling purposes.
Okay, thank you.
Member Canto, you have questions? Sorry, Russell, are you done?
Yes, we're here to answer any questions if you have any on
Okay,
the,
thank you.
because all this is a right of entry for due diligence to US.
Right. Okay, Member Canto.
So in reference, Kevin, in reference to your last comment regarding not seeing any cattle, corrals, or anything livestock, all that kind of stuff. Does DOA comment? Is DOA here to comment on that?
DOA is here, yes.
Okay, I'll just wait to hear further.
Let's go ahead and hear from folks. Okay, so I think first up we have folks from the applicant in the room. Okay, so Noni Toledo, who wants to go first? Okay, yeah, come up here, and I hope it works. You're talking to us directly and also online. Okay, wait.
Push the.
Yeah. Start video.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Yep.
Start your video because the host has stopped it.
Harsh. Here, let me try. Ask to start you. Did it do anything? There you go.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I was pushing the wrong one. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you, Chair and Board. My name is Nick Henriksen. I'm here on behalf of Eurus Energy America. Just wanted to give a quick intro about our company, and then if there's specific questions about the project that we're anticipating, that would be pursuant to this right of entry, I'll turn it over to my colleague. So just really quickly, again, thank you. We're happy to be here in person. Eurus Energy is a purely renewable energy based owner and operator of facilities. We've been doing this globally since mid-1980s, so for a very long time. We've been working in Hawaii specifically since around 2014. I was personally involved with the construction and finalization of a large solar project that's on the west side of Oahu over in Waianae that was built in 2017. So that, at the time it was built, was the largest PV project in the state. So we have a fair amount of experience here. We still own and operate that project. So kind of a long-term presence here in Hawaii specific to renewable energy. Globally, we own more than 3 gigawatts. So that's 3,000 megawatts of all renewable energy. So it's all around the world, the United States, Europe, Asia, Australia. So experienced owner-operator, long-term presence here in Hawaii, and this is a project we're very excited about. So if there's questions about Eurus, I'm happy to answer them. If not, if there's questions about the project, we can go into more details.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Go ahead.
are you operating under a different corporate entity in Hawaii? Because the submittal says that Eurus is not licensed to operate in Hawaii.
Sure. So most of our projects are kind of individual project companies. So the project company that is the ultimate owner and operator of the Waianae Solar Project is a wholly owned subsidiary of Eurus Energy. But when we talk about Eurus Energy, it's yes, we do own that project 100%.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, yes, sir.
Chair and members of board, thank you very much for your time as well. My name is David Tomlinson. I work for Eurus Energy as well as more of the technical project manager on this project. And I just wanted to reiterate, as Russell has already mentioned, that this application is for a right of entry so that we can conduct various studies, cultural, environmental, biological, and land topography studies to evaluate the feasibility of developing a renewable energy project. The renewable energy project that we envision is, again, to make renewable electricity from a solar farm and then convert that electricity into renewable zero carbon hydrogen which is renewable and has zero carbon. And then we will be selling that energy to, there's a number of possible off-takers that could purchase that electricity or that, that fuel, including Hawaii gas and also as a transportation fuel. And also the electricity, which would be renewable as well, could also be sold if we wanted to HECO. Yeah, happy to answer.
Can I just comment that this is the kind of project that certainly I and we envisioned when we we're negotiating with the Department of Agriculture under the previous director, Scott Enright. Because this is an industrial parcel. We wanted to use it for industrial purposes. We got some very heavy pressure from previous Mr. Enright to do this set aside in order to do this cattle feedlot parcel. And so we negotiated that, you know, we would be able to do a renewable energy project as long as it was, you know, we did it in a manner that was, you know, didn't unreasonably interfere with the use of the parcel as a feedlot for whatever amount that they needed, including potentially if they wanted to use a larger area for cattle pasture during that, you know, possibly to have the panels raised so that there's room to house cattle underneath it. Is that the kind of thing you're open to discussing with the operator of the slaughterhouse?
Absolutely. We understand that they have a need and that there's an importance for cattle slaughtering on Oahu, elsewhere in the islands, and we certainly want to work with that operation. At this point, we are trying to understand, you know, get access to the property so that we can figure out what we can do, and then obviously want to work with them and others to come up with.
That's part of your due diligence, yeah, right of entry. And the other thing I wanted to say is, you know, one of the things we were worried about was whether a renewable energy project would be able to sort of tie into the grid. And it sounds like you have a better idea here, which is just to produce hydrogen as energy, so you wouldn't need to tie into the grid. It'd be mobile energy. Is that right?
It has a number of options, right? It could be mobile energy, so you can truck it, you can pipe it, and there's multiple off-takers, potential off-takers. So it's a very diverse, you know, very environmentally friendly fuel.
Okay, thanks.
Does your solar farm include storing the energy?
It could and would likely include a battery.
Yep.
We would also potentially store some of the hydrogen there.
Yeah, okay. So one last question. In the event that, you know, you're going to do due diligence, in the event that, you know, maybe it doesn't pencil out or whatever, does that information belong, or can that information be shared with the state?
In the initial phases, it would be for us. If we were able to move forward with, you know, a permit or application to work, then that information would be in that permit. And then that permit document would probably become public.
Okay, thank you.
Or would be public, I guess.
Other questions?
This is maybe a little off-the-wall question. Somebody was talking to me the other day about ammonia as a ship fuel being generated by renewable energy, trying to green up the fuel, using ammonia as a fuel. Do you have any ideas about that?
I mean, that's certainly possible. Hydrogen is a chemical feedstock that could be used to make could be used to make ammonia or renewable fertilizer or even aviation fuel. So those are all possibilities. We will be probably, you know, it's hard to say. One of the reasons why we like this particular area is because it is co-located near, you know, industrial facilities that are really capable, and, you know, it's right next to a refinery that does that kind of stuff. I don't know about ammonia specifically, but that is a transportation fuel, and hydrogen can be used to make ammonia, absolutely.
All right, thank you. And are there any examples of solar panels above cattle holding areas?
You know, we actually operate another farm in California where we do have, we actually have sheep that we use to graze. Certainly, depending on the amount of area that you are going to need for the pens, for the cattle, you could put it, you know, for example, on a roof or something like that for that area. it can get quite, if you're talking about a large area, then it gets obviously much more expensive to do. So technically, you could do it. Economically, it all depends. And that's part of what we want to understand here.
Any questions?
Chair?
Yeah,
Chair, I have a question for him again. So, Mr. Moore, can you give me the name of your project? We're on the mainland.
Avenal Solar Holdings, Avenal Solar Holdings,
Would you spell that for me, please?
AVENAL Solar Holdings.
Okay. And the project that, say again?
It's near the city of Avenal in Central California.
Okay, thank you for that. So, and this is probably a premature question, last question. So the area that we're talking about is 110 acres. Would you think that the project that you're looking to put out there would encompass all of the acreage or a good portion of it?
So obviously, there's a tremendous need for renewable energy on the island, and we would like to use, we probably could use the entire amount for generation of hydrogen and renewable energy. But we understand that there are other, the lessee and other people who may have needs for it and would like to do it. So we don't need the entire property, and we want to work with the other involved stakeholders.
Okay,
So we
thank
don't
you,
need the
Mr.
entire
Moore.
110 acres.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? All right, thanks very much. We may have more questions later. So. All right. Anybody else want to speak? You guys okay for now? Okay, then let's go to, I think we have Mr. Farias here, Bobby Farias. Oh, sorry. Department of Agriculture, do you want to say anything?
Morris Atta here, Deputy for Department of Agriculture. We don't have a whole lot to say other than just what we said in our testimony about our desire to make sure that the right of entry, if granted, does have provisions for appropriate, notice and accommodations to, do not interfere with our lessee's use of the land. As to the comments by DLNR staff about current usage, I am going to defer to our lessee because I understand that they have explanations for everything that was cited by DLNR staff. We were informed of it, and we understand that the explanation given to us was that what's on there now was in support of what our current lessee had had planned to one, improve the lot for feedlot use, and two, to support their slaughter operations on the adjacent property. So whether or not that constitutes an allowable use, I thought was a bit premature until we hear an explanation from the lessee. And so I am going to defer on all of that matters, all of those issues, to the lessee to explain what's going on the property. But again, just to reiterate, the department's position is that we understand that DLNR has this right to eventually, plan and develop a renewable energy project. And so we understand that the matter before the board is only to discuss a right of entry for due diligence purposes to determine whether or not a project is even feasible. And on that basis, we really, have no position other than to acknowledge that that's something that's contemplated. So with that, we're available for questions, but I would defer on all the specific, concerns about usage to the current lessee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll come back to you folks if we have any questions. I think it's Bobby Farias is next.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, board, and thank you for the time to be able to testify. So again, Bobby Farias, owner and operator of Hawaii Land and Livestock. I stand on my testimony that I oppose the right of entry, mainly on the basis that, we've had a couple of meetings with the developer, and they were very clear that they weren't willing to work with us in the sense that they needed a direct lease. When I asked, what does a direct lease mean? That they want Hawaii Land and Livestock to give up the lease because their funding requires that they don't have subleases. So again, we're just ranchers trying to make this slaughter facility that we've put a lot of money into next door, like Russell had mentioned and explained. The timing on building out the feedlot is going to be dependent on the specific need of the slaughter facility. And so we first chose to do the development of the slaughter facility, which we did, completed in October, which gives us a way to dictate exactly the volume we're going to need and how we set the feedlot up. So that's, a timing issue that one of the staffers from DLNR brought up, that he didn't see anything that pertained to cattle. On the feedlot site, the staffer may not recognize what infrastructure for agriculture looks like, but agriculture isn't just cows and grass. The slaughter facility, 90% of the time, the meat being live and or in a box is in a truck on the road. The facility is a factory, electrical, plumbing, all kinds of things happen in that facility day and night. We run 2 shifts there, so it doesn't give us a lot of time to keep the building going 5 days a week. The footprint that the truckers are on, there wasn't any grading done to it. There was clearing, whatever entity was there last had left everything as is in place. So we removed a lot of concrete, a lot of kiawe trees and stuff to open up an area to be able to stage the trucking company, who, again, like I said, does a lot of our non-meat production maintenance on the building, the property, all of our shipping containers and everything else. Again, cattle industry, when you're on Young Brothers, you're unique to everybody else on the pier, right? We have to own all of our own shipping equipment. So we've got 9 trailers that are on the pier every day that tend to get beat up a little bit. And so that company, with their industrial size, services those trailers every week for us, whether it's removing material that's in them or repairing them. As far as the staffer mentioned too about rock rubble and stuff, a lot of that concrete, again, was stuff that we picked up that were either feed bunkers or along the feed bunker areas, there's a footpad where the cattle stand on. It's all concrete. So some of the areas that we did clean up and did some test clearing to see what the budget was going to be to remove all the kiawe and everything that was left behind from the former feedlot. That concrete in the back, again, was rubble from that, and a lot of the CMU walls that came out of the slaughter plant when we did our over 6,000 square foot of renovation in the building. Took out a lot of old CMU walls and replaced it with the newer closed cell foam, insulated panels for the building. So anyway, a little bit of background on that. Again, the opposition of Hawaii Land and Livestock is that the developer was very clear that they required us to give up the lease so that they could secure financing. And for that, that negatively impacts the lease. I mean, in the lease it says, which somebody had brought up, that doesn't unreasonably impact the lease. And I think that's an unreasonable impact to have to give up the lease. So anyway, I'll stand on that. I know there'll be other questions, so I'll be available for questions.
Yeah, I will ask you to clarify that. Mr. Farias, can I ask, what's the name of the company that you use to haul?
American Hauling, that is their name.
All right, other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions of Mr. Farias. You have, according to your lease, you're supposed to have a plan of utilization. Do you have that plan of utilization?
So we turned that plan into, for our conservation plan. So it shows the boneyard, and I'm not sure how that, that area got that name, given the business, but so it has that 7-acre footprint, and it has a set of pens that we had proposed that was going to, how it was going to be set up, and how we were going to utilize the area.
So that, I mean, I think I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. As I think the lease calls for a conservation plan with the Soil and Water Conservation District. I'm not really asking about that. I'm asking about the plan of utilization that's supposed to set out how you're going to actually use the property, and that's supposed to be with, it's filed with the Department of Ag. And that has, do you have that plan of utilization filed with the Department of Ag?
Yeah, it's pastoral.
Well, what does it say? You know, the area where these equipment is stored, is that consistent with your plan of utilization?
Yes, like Morris mentioned, the DOA does a site visit every year. Something must have triggered from the DLNR office also, so they had done an initial, another visit other than their yearly visit. And again, the facility where American Hauling is, it is very integral to the slaughter business in keeping that property operational. We have sumps, we have a man-made wetland there where it's the wastewater treatment from the building, from the slaughter floor. They do, they're a fabrication outfit also. So again, when they build and repair our containers, our shipping containers, all of our rail systems, a lot of the building is hydraulic, is what runs a lot of the equipment in the building. And all of that has to be done after hours or on weekends because the building operates under federal inspection 5 days a week. We start at 5 in the morning and the last shift is finished at 10 at night.
I want to make sure I understand this correctly. When you talk about the building, you're talking about the Hawaii Meat facility that's on an adjoining property to the state lease, correct?
Right, which is also a lease held by Hawaii Land and Livestock.
So you're operating the two in conjunction, or you expect to operate the two in conjunction, but that's where when there's a testimony about a $5 million investment made so far, that was in the Hawaii Meat building, correct?
Correct.
Right. I'm trying to understand what your long-term plan is for the 110-acre parcel, because on the one hand, I've heard holding area for cattle, which would then be slaughtered, and then I'm also hearing feedlot, which to me is quite a different thing. Are you planning to make a feedlot there?
Yeah, so you can't have a feedlot in Hawaii. Hawaii doesn't have any CAFO permits available, so you can't do contained fed animals over a certain amount of numbers, and that is what requires the amount of footprint, right? If it was a conventional feedlot, you could put quite a bit of animals in a small area, and that wouldn't be allowed in that area, nor is that our model, right? It's a grass-fed model. So what was going to be the design for the 110 acres is to have larger pens there. And again, was going to be driven by the amount of volume that we could move through the building. Over the last couple of years, our parent company who operates the slaughter facility now has access to the other facility on the Big Island. So there's a larger pool to pull cattle from, which dictated our build out of the Hawaii Meats facility. And now is going to clearly tell us what is the volume and the turnover rate of the cattle we're going to need in Honolulu available. The holding area, so feedlot is a bad a title for the parcel because everybody thinks contained fed animals, right? So it really is a holding area or a surge tank. I've used that term before. When you know, a lot of the cattle come from off island because there isn't very much pasture in Honolulu anymore. But to secure the amount of animals that we need to go through the building, and the building currently has over 70 local employees there, right? To keep that building operating and being able to deliver 5 days a week, we're gonna have to get around stuff like storms or shutdowns for YB or backups. And so there's gonna have to be a certain amount of cattle that are held there so that we're not depending on a Wednesday incoming barge to be able to have slaughter for Thursday, Friday, Monday. So it really is a surge tank, I guess, is the best definition, right? To be able to stage cattle that can be pulled through the building as we need.
So, you know, now I understand much better. And so what you're talking about is simply a holding area, and you don't want to have more cattle being held for longer than absolutely necessary.
Well, it
right?
depends.
I mean, you don't want to bring them, you can't, you know, I don't know how often the barge comes in, but you don't want to have them out there for 3 weeks or something, right?
Well, it depends, right? If you're talking finished cattle, you want them, you know, here 30 days prior to slaughter for them to be able to calm down and get acclimated to the area. That's one scenario. The other scenario is when we, you know, being a good partner to our ranching partners, you know, unforeseen things happen like the fire that Parker Ranch had to undergo. When a large ranch like that or a large partner undergoes some problem that way, they might have to move cattle earlier than they are ready to. And a place like that, a staging area like that, would be an opportunity for the rancher to move the cattle earlier, and that becomes now a feeding burden of the plant. But that would, again, be able to buffer the interruption of cattle showing up. Because other than that, right, the rancher doesn't have any options to them. Sometimes either euthanize on site and or ship away to other markets across, you know, overseas, California or beyond.
I have just another question about the lease, and that is, lease says that the property is supposed to be 50% developed within 2 years. Did you get an extension? You have not actually done, you reached 50% development of the 110 acres, right?
We have not, and we spoke to the Department of Ag about this during COVID and everything else, right? I mean, things were topsy-turvy, one. And two, we were focusing again on the build out of the facility that was going to dictate exactly what we needed there on site. And to be clear, right? I mean, solar has always been something we've talked about. We've sat in meetings with Russell about it. But what we were looking for is a true partnership, and not for an opportunity where we would have to give up the lease for that opportunity to flourish. I mean, again, we have the lease for 35 years, and that was the plan, is for that lease of the old feedlot to the lease to run parallel with the slaughter facility so that they could support each other in what each piece of property does.
Well, I just, you know, I think everybody should thank you for all your answers. I just think maybe everybody should look at the plan of utilization that's supposed to be on file to see how these operations can be made, these two projects can be made compatible. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
I have some questions. So when you're talking about pens, you're talking about a number of I think you mentioned 7-acre pens?
There's different sizes, right? Depending on if they're going to be long-term stays, so the pens are bigger. And as the pens get closer to the building, they get smaller, so they're easier to gather them up. But again, there's no specific size to these pens yet.
So you're envisioning multiple pens on the property. And
yeah.
Depending on what your volume is.
Right. I mean, it would look somewhat like a rotational grazing parcel, right? So if you were to go on any other rotational grazing website, right, it'd be different size pens. Given, drier times, you've got to move the cattle around more and give it more resting time. Rainy time, you'd have more feed. And again, right, staging cattle, you would predict to stage more during the winter months when you have rain, so you can replenish the grass growth. And of course, in the summer months, you'd either have to plan to stage less and or have locally baled grass or commercial feed available.
And so you envision a combination of grass that you would grow on the parcel and commercial feed to augment? Is that what you're envisioning?
I don't really think that's going to be a great place to grow feed, but there is a lot of baling opportunities, local grass baling opportunities in Oahu, and beyond. I mean, we're working with commercial feed. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for commercial feed, I think, as this local beef industry grows. But to be able to develop the local feed industry, we're going to have to make sure that there's an end user, again, the rancher, which all starts at the
So not to grow grass on this parcel, but to feed the cattle locally grown grass.
Right. It's really a staging area for cattle. And there's a lot of buffalo that grows there. I mean, over the last rains that we've had, I mean, the buffalo's knee deep there. And better in some places than other, because I guess over the years with the amount of topsoil built from the feedlot being there, those places, I guess, tend to have grown more feed. I mean, it's bedrock there, right? It's all coral. So I guess where the feedlot was more concentrated, it built more topsoil and therefore grows more grass. But no, I don't think that's going to be a great fruitful place to grow a crop to feed cattle.
Okay, and the feedlot, it's called the feedlot parcel because there was a feedlot there previously, is that right?
Correct. It just, I think everybody just keeps calling it the feedlot for that.
You know how big that was?
It was the whole 110 acres as far as I know. I mean, as far as cattle pens, to take a stab at it, it was probably on, 80 or 90 of the acres. I mean, you can see the remnants of the specific footprint. That facility held 18,000 head capacity.
In the past.
In the past, yeah. Well, I mean, whether it was full that way or not, I don't know.
And do you slaughter anything other than cattle?
Yeah, in the past, hog, sheep, for 4-H. I mean, the 4-H is the only multi-species requirement as far as other than cattle and hogs. Right now, we do local hogs twice a month, and then other than that, local cattle.
And are you going to continue to do that?
The local hog industry, we don't own any of the hogs. That is all owned by other farmers, and so we just a fee for service. So the longevity of that program really is more up to the hog farmers. There has been talks about the hog farmers getting some other facilities put together. One was putting up their own facility on the feedlot site. I don't think there was any buy-in on that. I think they are looking to be able to control their own facility at some point, but currently the slaughter happens at the Hawaii Meats facility next door.
So for hogs and sheep, you will continue to offer that as a fee for service, but the price is up for negotiation. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, well, there isn't much sheep out there now. Again, most of the sheep and goats that we did was for 4-H. The hogs we do, we've renegotiated a price with them recently. But yes, currently we're still doing the local hog slaughter.
And the cattle that come through, are they all slaughtered locally, or are some of them shipped to the mainland?
The cattle that are slaughtered there are all local. And the meat that is gotten from that slaughter is all sold locally. We don't sell anything in the mainland.
But the cattle that you bring to this facility, are they all slaughtered there?
Yeah, that's a final destination.
They're not holding and then being shipped live to the mainland. Is that right?
Yeah, no, these are all full-term cattle, yeah.
Okay, and then can I ask you again, the hauling company, is the hauling company paying you rent?
They rent a space there for storage, but what they do is we trade services, and we acquired them when I took over the lease. They were there, not on that particular site. They were on the 7 acres itself, the next door property. But it's really a trade for services. It's such a unique thing to haul livestock. One, timing. Two, it's not like strapped down freight, right? I mean, you really need to be savvy to moving around live cattle. And then the schedule again is it's not normal. The other thing is all of the fabrication services. When we had to move the hog slaughter from one side of the building to the other, that company did all the fabrication for the rail systems in the building. And again, worked with us, being that it's a federally inspected building, things have to be done a certain way and cleaned up before start of the next day. And then again, everything having to be after hours. And they were very integral in all of that work. So that's.
And do they do services for other companies or individuals than you?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I mean, they do some fabrication stuff and trucking. I mean, our trucking stuff they do wouldn't survive them solely.
And it's called, what did you say, American Hauling?
Correct.
'Cause I just looked up American Hauling in the business registration, and there's 3 entities, but they are dissolved, expired, or terminated.
I think Luke said All American Hauling.
Yeah, but I didn't see anything there either.
Yeah, I probably just misheard. It was a few months ago when I was there talking to him.
American Hauling. Okay, I think that was all my questions for now.
I have a question.
Yeah, Member Canto and then Member Char.
So, sir, I just have a concern regarding EPA issues. There just seems to be from the exhibits that there's a lot of trucks and, things of that nature on the property. That's one question. I have another one after that. Can you answer to those concerns? EPA concerns?
The EPA concerns to the amount of trucks?
Well, yeah, I mean, is work being done? Are you the person to ask regarding that? Yeah.
I'm not sure how EPA question correlates to just the trucks. I mean, you mean working on the trucks? Or?
Yeah, things of that nature. It happens on the property, does it not?
Yeah, but I don't think they're doing it. There's no violations of EPA for the work that they're doing.
Uh-huh. Don't you think that I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't say that. I think that things that concern cattle, so to speak, I don't know where they're holding and et cetera. I just want to know if environmental protection issues are a concern for you.
I mean, I guess are you concerned about the livestock being in proximity to the care of the trucks?
Exactly. Are they not?
Currently they're not, but the repairs or whatever they do there doesn't have any negative impact to livestock. I mean, changing a tire or fueling a truck or switching from one truck to another, that's not going to have any negative impact on livestock.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's one takeaway from this conversation here is that to have a viable agriculture entity, there is a fair amount of industrial attached equipment to it. Specifically in this case, I mean, we can't operate that building without some industrial component to it, whether it lives offsite or onsite. It takes a fair amount of industrial support to keep that going. One is going to be the cleanup of the feedlot. I mean, the last tenant left everything in place. It's going to take that kind of equipment, large equipment, to be able to unearth all of that, cables and piping and water lines and cement troughs and walkways and everything else, on top of all of the kiawe that's grown there over the years. So, but yeah, I don't see any of that.
Can I just say, I understand what you are saying. That was not the intention when we had the discussions about transferring this parcel to the Department of Agriculture. It was for agricultural purposes, the agricultural part of the purposes. It was the cattle holding area. So we'll have to look into that some more, but I just want to say I understand what you're saying. And that was, that wasn't what certainly we intended.
Okay.
So we'll have to revisit that at a later time, but.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, Ms. Canto, I didn't mean to interrupt you, although I did.
And then my second question was, you mentioned that early on the applicant made mention that they would love to utilize the entire 110 acres. I mean, I get that. And we're willing to talk to people in the industry. So just a minute ago, you mentioned that, would you comment on that statement from the applicant?
That the applicant was willing to work.
Right, together.
Well, again, I don't see working with the tenant, asking the tenant to give up their lease. I don't see that as working with the tenant. I mean, they were very clear that they needed Hawaii Land and Livestock, my company, to give up the lease because they need a direct lease to be able to secure financing. So that's the only reason that I don't feel that the right of entry is pertinent, because if they do get a right of entry and find that the project is viable, then that means we're going to have to give up the lease. And if we're not willing to give up the lease, then I don't see why giving them the right of entry.
Ms. Canto, can I interrupt one more time?
Sure.
Just to clarify? If that's not an issue, if the lease part is not an issue, do you still object to this?
I think if
Because there's basically different interests here, right? You have the right to use it for agricultural purposes, and there is a reserved right to the department here to use it for renewable energy. So if it's a lease of that reserved right, and it doesn't affect your direct lease for agricultural purposes, is that an issue for you?
that would be something that we'd have to talk with the developer, which we tried. We've had 2 meetings. The first meeting went well. I think it was about working together and finding some amicable way to construct solar opportunity without impeding the agriculture operation below it, which was a good meeting. The second meeting, they were very clear that they would not entertain the fact of a sublease from Hawaii Land and Livestock and wanted a direct lease. And I said, well, I'm not interested in giving up the lease. We have, we have very clear plans on how we need it and how we plan to use it and how it supports the slaughter facility next door.
If I may, Chair.
Sorry, Member Canto, I apologize again. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may add on that question that Mr. Farias mentioned.
Go ahead.
Because I've been waiting to clarify that. I think Mr. Farias has a misunderstanding that it's going to require a sublease from Mr. Farias to a URES. That was never contemplated. This is a 171 set aside to DOA with the specific reservation that DLNR holds the right to do renewable energy leases. So if it was a project to move forward, it'll be a BLNR, the Board of Land and Natural Resources lease to URES. I just wanted to clarify that. Secondly, and I heard Mr. Farias testify, and I thought I heard him indicate that there might have been some renovation or remodeling done, of $5 million done to the neighboring site. But I hope that it was never intended, certainly not in my mind, that this site would be used as a area that you could put your construction waste from that site or store your construction material on this site. This was supposed to be specifically for cattle holding prior to slaughter, with the reservation for renewable energy to the board. Thank you.
Member Canto, any other questions?
Chair, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Member Char.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to disclose on the record that I represented the slaughterhouse and the livestock company in setting this lease up many years ago when the slaughterhouse was first constructed. And I think I was minimally involved in the ultimate transfer to the Frias's various entities. There are multiple entities. We didn't get too much involved, but I was aware of the transfer of the slaughterhouse and the attendant feedlot property to Mr. Frias's company. Having said that, I'm still torn today with my DLNR hat and the reservation of right issue on solar power and energy generation. And I think that still has some potential. I'm not sure how the mechanics work out, whether half the property can be kept for the feedlot, if it's necessary to continue with the slaughterhouse, to have that for either the water or the, I understand, recall there was some issue on dispersal of the water for cleanup from the slaughterhouse that had some relationship with this side property, but that all aside, seems to me that purpose today is only to permit a right of entry for the applicant to begin its investigation, and hopefully some of these legal issues can be resolved in the interim period. I would hope that the Department of Ag would take a more stronger view and advise, because it's a Department of Ag lease with the reservation of right for energy with the Department of Land and Natural Resources. So I would expect that the Department of Ag would take a more aggressive stand rather than merely rely on the Frias's company in the future as this progresses. That's my comment.
Thank you. Other comments, questions?
I just have one last question of Mr. Farias, and that's whether does the hauling company have another base yard?
Sorry, I was muted. I do not know if they have another base yard.
Thank you. I have a question of the Department of Ag representative. If he's familiar with they're supposed to have a plan of utilization and development on file.
So you're asking if
And
they,
yes.
oh, you're asking.
Do they have?
Can I bring up Linda Marai? She is the property manager involved with this case, whether or not she can answer that question.
Hello, everyone. My name is Linda Marai. I'm a property manager with the ARM division of the Department of Agriculture. And yes, when Hawaii Land and Livestock put in their application for the feedlot, part of the application or a portion of the application is their plan of utilization and development. And so, yes, they do have a plan for utilization and development on file with us.
Does that show storage of industrial equipment as being part of the uses there?
It does not. I don't recall, but I think not. Because the use was for pasture. However, I'm going to have to make this comment. As an agricultural property manager, and we manage farms, various farms types and everything, and almost every farm has heavy equipment on it. The larger the farm, the more heavy equipment they have, because it's used in their everyday operations. And so there's always, especially with the larger commercial farms, there's always like a shed or a warehouse on the property that houses this equipment. And it's just part of the agricultural use that's part of their operation, their business operation and their agricultural operations. So when I saw the heavy equipment and some of the supplies on the property, it was, to me anyway, just part of their operation. And we would, and they approached us to let us know what they were using the equipment for. And they also asked us to put it in writing that it's okay for them to have the equipment there. And admittedly, at the initially there was less equipment than there was in I guess when Luke Sarvis, when staff, DLNR staff went there. And so at the last site inspection that I did send them a letter saying that you need to control the size of the operation there, and they did. So, but my point is really that industrial farming, heavy equipment is just part of farming. And it's part of, it's just part of the operation, the business operation and farming and ranching. Thank you.
Can I comment on that? I mean, I think what might be acceptable is equipment to service a pasture area rather than lots of heavy equipment to service an adjacent slaughterhouse and off-site uses. Sorry, go ahead.
And then does their plan of utilization show what areas would be, how much land would be used for various holding pens and the like? And what does it tell us about the ultimate utilization of the whole property?
Well, for this use, because it's pasture use, the initial intention was for the entire lot to be used for pasture. So as I recall and I'm sorry, it's like I would need to look at their application again, but based on pasture use, I don't think there were corrals set up for that sort of thing, but if you want me to go back and check and report back to you, that's fine.
That's all I have now. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions at this stage? No, thank you, Mr. Farias. Next person is Mr. Scott Enright.
Good morning, Chair, board members. Scott Enright for Hawaii Land and Livestock. Chair, I'll stand on my written testimony that I submitted. It touched on most of the salient issues that have been touched on in this conversation. And I'll just mention that, in listening to this, I find this adversarial. And what I would recommend is that the two land divisions go back. You defer this issue, have them go back and settle some of these things before it comes back to the board for the right of entry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Enright. I just have to say, I read your testimony that came in late yesterday, and I I did not appreciate your, comment that we were, as is typical, taking an adversarial position like we're doing with Act 90. We have been trying to work very collaboratively with ranchers and the Department of Agriculture for years to work out areas where we have mutual interests and also multiple uses. And this is a situation where we have a multiple use, just as we have pasture lands that have multiple uses for endangered species management, hunting, access for traditional and customary practices, reforestation, and the like. And I'm much calmer than I was yesterday when I read your testimony, but I would ask you to please join us in working as collaboratively as possible, because ranch wars don't help anyone. We are trying in good faith to work out things in a way that is win-win for multiple uses in areas where those matter.
Well, if I
Just wanted
can,
to say that.
okay, if I can, Chair Case, I didn't mean to upset you. You and I have always been forthright about whatever issues we're touching on. And, that is the way that I see this. Russell's comments about how this lease could eventually go through is steamrolling agriculture. We have a leaseholder on this property that's putting in millions of dollars in good faith. And they're also developing a property on the Big Island that works in conjunction, as my testimony stated. And so then you move on, and we had the pandemic thrown in. So they're moving in good faith. This is a good faith leaseholder. It's doing good things for agriculture. These two parcels have always been adjoined as agriculture, as Member Char mentioned. And I agree with the member that Department of Agriculture needs to be more aggressive on this, if you're still out there, Morris. But my apologies for upsetting you. I know how hard you work, and that's not being facetious. But that's how I feel about it. And again, I recommend sending those two land division staffs back together. They should have talked about what was ongoing on the property and how that does support agriculture. That said, you'll always have my respect, Chair. Sorry for upsetting.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Enright? Members? Right. Any other questions?
Applicant wanted to make a comment.
Sorry, you did want to add something.
I did, but I think that Dave Tomlinson here, I'll just say that I do believe that Russell clarified one of the questions that we wanted to comment on. And also, I'll disclose that we did, as part of this process, reach out to both initially, of course, to Department of Natural Resources, but then also met with DOR and have a good, DOA, and hope to have a continuing good relationship with both of those agencies to move this forward positively.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, any other questions, comments? Again, obviously this turned into a wider question about the use of the parcel, which I'm sure we'll have further discussion, but the item before us is just a right of entry recommendation. Come back to the main recommendation here. Is an access right of entry to URUS for its due diligence purposes. Any further questions on that? And if not, is there a motion to approve this D4 as submitted?
If I could,
I'll make a motion.
one closing comment, if I could.
Okay.
Again, as an agriculture person my whole life, and I've dedicated it to now this particular part of it in this, making more local meat available to try to bolster the opportunities to keep local ranching alive. I've heard inferences along the way from staff of DLNR that, if this is a project that makes sense and that they want, it's going to happen, and that is going to displace the agriculture opportunity. There's no two ways to it. The developer mentioned that it's not feasible to put the panels above the cattle. When the lease that I have for 35 years, and again, the plan is over 35 years, right? This is not a gold mine project where there's large financing to be able to speed up the process of the development. It's just agriculture, right? It's expensive, and it's expensive upfront, and there's just not an unlimited amount of source of money to tap into to do those in a timely fashion like any other development would. But like Mr. Enright mentioned, right, this will be yet another show of that the state isn't necessarily getting behind the development of agriculture, because in this case, we have demonstrated is how we got the lease to begin with, is that the slaughterhouse will depend on the old feedlot next door to be able to assure its feasibility for years to come. And without that, it's going to hamper the development opportunity for local beef. And again, in good faith, we negotiated over a long period of time. What we felt was we got as a 35-year lease so that we could build out over the term to get that built. But this is why nothing's been built yet, because there's been no hard, fast opinion that what we build will be secure in its longevity. Again, there's been comments and maybe I misunderstood them and somebody can clarify them. But if this is a project that DLNR wants to happen, it's going to happen, and the current leaseholder will be displaced for it. I mean, it's going to be highest best use. So,
Mr. Farias, I guess I would just refer you to the executive order, which allows the use of this parcel for agricultural purposes and reserves the right to do renewable energy in a manner that does not unreasonably interfere with the use of the parcel for agricultural purposes. And so that's the intent. And so, we will make every effort to be careful to ensure that your use of this parcel for agricultural purposes is not unreasonably interfered with a renewable energy parcel, which is also a high state priority. We're talking about two very high state priorities here: food security and renewable energy, and a setup that, if it's going to unreasonably interfere with your use for agricultural purposes, that's not the goal here. So I just want to assure you that the goal is to work this out in a way that works for everyone.
I can appreciate that comment, but like I did in my testimony, it was very clear that the developer said that a direct lease was the only way forward, and that would be Hawaii Land and Livestock giving up the lease. So I didn't view that as.
Well, that may be a misunderstanding, and it may be something that needs to go through legal analysis. So we'll do our best to clear that up.
And just to clear it up, Bobby, I've never told you would be displaced. It was always with the as long as it does not unreasonably interfere with your operation, which was a cattle holding company. It is true, and Mr. Enright is not familiar.
I'm going to go back to the motion here. I'm going to go back to the motion. So is there a motion to approve this? I think Mr. Char made a motion to approve it as submitted. Is there a second?
Predicated on what Chair has just announced as to the meaning and intent of this application, I move approval of staff recommendation.
Thank you. Okay, is there
Second.
a second? All right, any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry, Member Canto, you're opposed? Or are you aye?
I'm aye with reservations right now, but I'm going to hold. May I comment, Chair, to the language in the EO? I trust that the language in the EO will help both parties in this decision, but I'm voting in support with reservations.
Got it. Thank you so much. All right, 1, 2, okay. That's 6 passes, and let's take a short break, and then we'll go to D5 and then the F item.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's talking about it. I really would like to, keep in touch as you go through to, see what your plans are and what we need to work out on it.
We'd be happy, absolutely,
Great.
we're be happy to, we can.
Yeah, let me give you my, here's my contact information. Let me. Russell Suji, and you are on mute. Wait,
I did it. Yep.
okay, Russell Suji. Okay, D5.
Okay, D5 is asking the board to amend a prior right of entry granted to add additional tax map key parcels to the right of entry for purposes of the Army Corps going in and searching out and revenuing any unexploded ordinances found on state lands, including submerged lands.
Hang on, is this the one Michelle Barbieri, you know?
She's gonna be F5.
Oh, F5, thank you. Okay.
My staffer, Barbara Lee, who has been working on this from probably day one of all the Army Corps rights of entries that we've been granting for this purpose, is on staff, on board to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Okay, and then we have Mr. Richard Tanaka here. You want to add anything?
Good day, Chairperson Case, as well as to the board. Thank you for this opportunity to consider the addition of 10 more parcels to the blanket right of entry between the Army Corps of Engineers and the state of Hawaii.
Okay, and you are with the Army Corps of Engineers?
Yes, ma'am. I'm with the Army Corps of Engineers.
Okay, great, thank you. And let's see, we have Lauren Zulik. Is Lauren Zulik here? It doesn't look like it. Okay, questions, board members? Mr. Char.
Yes, is there, what is the term of this proposal? Is it one more year, 2023, or does it go on beyond that? And secondly, will there be a report back from the Corps of Engineers survey after they've reviewed the property? Those two questions.
As to the term, I'll call upon Barbara, but on my recollection, it's definitely longer than 1 year. This has been going on since the Lingo administration, if I recall correctly. But Barbara, can you speak on that? This is a continued ROE, right, if I understand correctly?
The parcels that are under consideration today are 10 additional parcels. And I understand that it'll probably take more than 1 year, and Richard can elaborate on that. So the other part of this request is to allow the chair to continue the right of entries to these parcels for additional 1 year extensions as allowed by our statutes. Richard, could you elaborate more on the work to be done to these parcels that are being added?
Thank you very much, Ms. Lee. Yes, that is correct. Right now, I think the original blanket ROE was signed back in 2018, 2017 timeframe. And yes, it is to add on these additional 10 parcels. Now, the Comprehensive Environmental Response Cleanup Liability Act, or CERCLA process in short, is a multi-year process. So yes, I think right now the initial request is to add these 10 parcels to the blanket right of entry between our organization, Army Corps, and State of Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources. There is a very highly likely, a potential to have to request more years, as a number of these parcels are still in, undergoing work. Now, also to Mr. Char, to answer your questions, do we have a report? Yes, we do have reports. Say, for example, on the airport parcel surrounding, the Waimea Airport, that is undergoing what's called a 5-year review. There was some work that was done in 2017. This is 2022. We are reviewing the type of work that was done back then. And yes, a 5-year review report will be provided to the public upon its completion.
Can I ask another question? On these new areas that are being added onto, was there any background on live ammunition or, munitions in these areas? Is that why you're going back into it?
Thank you very much, Mr. Char. I think what it is that due to some research we've done in the past, such as looking at past real estate agreements that the federal government had with various individuals, various organizations, there is the evidence of military training. So what it is that we are undergoing right now a study in certain areas and, like a check of the work of like a previous work that was done to like say, check on and see if there is any additional munitions or explosive concern that may still exist in the area.
Sorry, I don't understand what you said.
Oh,
Has there been live military operations in these areas previously? Is that why you're asking for the right of review?
there has been some training. Yes, there has been military training. It does vary, like say some areas, and I apologize per area, if say, I do apologize that I may not know exactly per area what was found, but we do know that there's some evidence of military training that may have been live fire in these areas.
Thank you. So I guess we'll look forward to receiving the reports.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I have a technical question for the AG, which is that the recommendation says to authorize the chair to issue additional, to extend the right of entry. Is it extend or authorize the chairperson to continue the right of entry permit on a month-to-month basis? Should that be delegate to the chair?
Yeah, it would be to delegate because this is a board's authority.
Yeah. We should make a slight modification to number 3. If the board is so inclined, you would change the language to, in 2B, to delegate to the chairperson the authorization to continue.
If there are no further questions by anybody, I would make that motion with that change.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right then, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Right,
Aye.
that passes unanimously with 6. Thanks so much, Russell, and Barbara. Done with the land division ones. We will move to the F items, finally, our very patient F item, Division of Aquatic Resources, people who have been waiting here in person. Great to see you.
Thank you. Great to see you guys.
All right, yeah, F1, go ahead with F1.
F1 is to extend.
All right, just please go ahead and introduce yourself for the record.
I'm Mike Fujimoto with DAR.
All right.
I'm an aquatic biologist upstairs. F1 is to extend for 1 year and to add funding to an existing project agreement that we have with RCOH. F1 is for the project entitled Investigation of Estuarine Habitats.
Thank you. Okay, board members, any questions on this one? No. Okay. Is there a motion to approve? There's no public testimony on any of these. Motion, actually on F1 through 4. Question, Member Canto.
No questions.
Sorry, you made the motion. All right, is there a
Thank
second?
you.
Second.
All in favor then, say aye.
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 Member Canto, okay. Thank you, that passes to 6. Number 2, F2.
F2 is doing the same thing to extend for 1 year and add money to a project with RCOH. This project is entitled Statewide Marine Resource Assessment.
Super. Okay, any questions? Oh, all right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, that passes with 6. Number 3.
And F3 is doing the same thing, extending and adding money to, project with RCUH entitled Hawaii Marine Recreational Fishing Survey.
All right. Any questions? All right, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes with 6. All right, thank you so much. That was worth the wait, wasn't it? No, it's really great to see you here in person. I really appreciate it.
Good to get out again.
Yeah. I'm just gonna let. Okay, F4.
Hi, Chair Chase and members of the board. My name is Kathy Gawicky. I'm a aquatic biologist with Division of Aquatic Resources. And today I'm presenting items F4 and F5. F4 is an amendment to an existing permit for an existing Kapahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument permit, Native Hawaiian Practices permit, to Puike Andrade of Namaka Onaona, and the University of Hawaii NOAA for access to state water to use traditional ecological knowledge to conduct intertidal surveys and monitoring to advise and direct management strategies for intertidal fishery activities. And the amendment would basically allow for the list of authorized personnel to be expanded to include additional personnel, for the maximum number of collections for 2 species of OPV to be increased to 80 specimens at Nihoa Island only. And the purpose of these additional collections is to increase the original sample size and to take advantage of an additional opportunity to collect at this location with this additional expedition. And in addition, the following clarification items are to be made. In April 2022, access into the monument will occur to Nihoa on a Fish and Wildlife Service chartered cruise above the vessel Searcher, which is permitted under the co-manager permit. And the additional authorized personnel listed may only engage in the permitted activities under the supervision and presence of the permittee, Puike Andrade. And all other terms of the original permit are unchanged and still apply.
Great, thank you. Any questions, board members? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve
So moved.
F4? All right,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Member Canto?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, and F5, and we do have the proposed permittee. All right, so F5, go ahead.
Okay, F5 is a renewal. This is the annual renewal. It is a request for authorization and approval to issue a Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument Conservation Management Permit to Dr. Michelle Barbieri-Lino of the Pacific Island Fisheries Science Center to access state waters to conduct Hawaiian monk seal management and recovery activities, inclusive of the removal of individual sharks at French frigate shoals displaying predatory behavior towards monk seal pups. And this monk seal program has conducted operations in the monument for many years in the past and has received a permit since 2008. And the program consists of conservation research activities aimed towards understanding the biology, ecology, survival, and recovery of the Hawaiian monk seal, including but not limited to population monitoring through tagging, photography, aerial surveys, and acoustic recording devices, and recovery interventions such as disentanglement of monk seals from marine debris, administering of antibiotics or vaccinations, rehabilitation or translocation, shark predation mitigation activities, and the removal of marine debris. And the activities are conducted at all the islands up in the monument, and so any islands that have the invasive algae chondria present will have specific BNPs attached to activities on those islands. And I think the researcher may be present in the Zoom waiting room, but I'm not.
Is Dr. Lino, is it? Would you like to add anything?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Kathy, for that overview. I'm here today to give you all a really brief update on things as I have an opportunity to share with you some really exciting news. Kathy already provided so much of the introduction, so I just thought I would really give a very succinct update on our activities. And that is to say that after looking at the 2021 data from our field season in Papahānaumokuākea, we're really excited to let everyone know that the species has reached a milestone that the population has gone over 1,500 animals for the first time in decades. We're seeing 2% growth on average per year across the species range. That's Maine and Northwestern Hawaiian Islands included since 2013. And with our 2021 data incorporated, that trend has held. So the recovery activities that we're conducting in Papahānaumokuākea, where the vast majority of the monk seal species resides, are having an impact. We know that there is a minimum of about 25 to 30% of the monk seals that are alive today are alive because of the impacts of the recovery activities that are these hands-on interventions that we conduct with the species. And we can measure that because of this long-term monitoring program. So I'm really excited to be here and offer that update to you all today. I'm very happy to answer any questions that you may have about the activities that we're conducting in Papahānaumokuākea. And thank you again very, very much for your time.
It's great news, and I know we're always very, very interested to hear the results of this work, and so it's super encouraging. Thank you so much for that. Question?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Is it Lino or Lino? Lino?
I was trying to both because I get both a lot. I actually usually go by Barbieri, my maiden name.
Oh, okay, Dr. Barbieri then. That makes it easier. Just two questions. One is the sharks. Are they just Galapagos sharks?
That is correct, Galapagos sharks.
Okay.
And very specifically those around specific islets at Lalo or French Frigate Shoals, only when certain triggers are met, which are outlined in the application.
Okay, and second one is, with the increase, that's such good news. Happy Friday to us. With the increase of, did you observe or know of any other species that have also benefited from this increase?
I don't know that specifically. In terms of just marine mammals or other ecosystem, I mean, there's so many different dynamics in play that I don't have the expertise to be able to speak to other taxa. But I think one word of caution that we always tell ourselves and we always recognize, and we see this reflected in the data, even for monk seals, is that there's lots of good news and reason to celebrate, and yet at the same time there are always things that are shifting in this ecosystem, especially as we start to look at the impacts of climate on these low-lying islands.
Don't take my high down, Dr. Barbieri.
I'm so sorry, but I don't feel that I have the answer to that question. But I at least wanted to offer that that we are really interested to see how the species will respond. And we do support other efforts upon request for other colleagues and researchers, whether they be our colleagues in the state or U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Our co-management partners are all really important to us, and we're working hard to support one another's needs and questions as we're maximizing the resources and time that we're up there.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments, board members? All right, if not, do I hear a motion to approve F5 as submitted?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All in favor? Say aye.
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 Aye. That passes with 6. Again, thank you so much for all your great work. It's just really exciting to get those kind of results, and it does give us hope. So carry on.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Board.
All righty. Thanks. And with that,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you very much. That brings our meeting to a close, and so we are adjourned.